Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and S.W.O.R.D, issue number 3. You ever sit down with your dookie fat stack of comics from New Comic Book Day, and the first comic book you pick up, you're just like, wow, I don't think I should read any of the other comic books because it's only going to go downhill from here. And like, you got Amazing Spider-Man coming up next, and you're thinking about not reading it just because of that. Bro, this was an absurdly amazing comic book, all focused on one guy. And like, one guy, and it's colored around the borders, which is like really deep focus on a character. There is nobody else in this comic book. I mean, there's like a quick appearance of Abigail Brand, but for the most part, nope. It's just my man's Manifold and Black History Month. Saying? This Wow, this was an absolutely amazing comic book. Let's talk about who made this comic book, and let's talk a little bit more about, what happened in the book. So this issue is called The Everywhere Man. Al Ewing is the writer. Here's a freaking crazy list of artists here. Valerio Scheide, Ray Anthony Height, Bernard Chang, and Nico Leon. They pulled no punches in this one with the art. Wow. Color art, Marty Gracia, VC's Ariana Maher on letters, Tom Mueller doing the design, and the cover art is Scheide and Gracia. Variant cover out there, and also Head of X, Jonathan Hickman, baby. Let's get going. So, there's a lot of times when, and maybe some people are going to take offense to this. I hope you don't. I hope that you just simply recognize this is my experiences. There's always some people who want to argue that where they come from means that they're tough. Yeah, sure. I'm sure where I come from, it definitely toughened me up a lot, saying, but, where I come from, we'll shoot you if you say, okay, where I come from, there are no guns, so we have to get into a fist fight and prove that you're a man. There's always somebody who's got something to say about where they come from and why that validates how tough they are. You know who I never hear talking about how tough they are? Aussies. I never hear Australians talking about, listen, you know that if at the end of the day we wanted to, we could tear you whole apart, right? I know, horrible freaking accent. That's what I do. I do terrible accents. Welcome to the channel. But at the same time, Aussies are the guys who come from the place where everything's trying to kill you. Like koalas, cutest freaking thing in the world, right? It will rip your freaking face off. You know what I'm saying? Call it a bear. See what happens. And meanwhile, my man's goes to Australia. He's just hanging out with some of his peeps, and nice little, not dig, but nice little, there's something going on between Manifold and Gateway, and I'm digging on that. Oh, of course, Gateway could talk. And then he gets interrupted. Wait, no, don't interrupt. I want to know what's going on there. Also the idea, mentoring him and everything. Like I love the little tidbits in here. So if you're not familiar with Manifold, if you are familiar with him, but you're not overly familiar with his relationship to Gateway, how he seems like just a younger knockoff version of Gateway, read this book. You'll understand a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? But the little bit at the end of this conversation with these peeps, where he's like, these guys aren't so bad. Respect the sacred land. That's their third rule, for Krakoa. That's pretty cool, right? And then he leaves. And then there's the ... And I love this. Ewing uses the ... correctly, where very few people do, because it's like they're at a loss for words, right? And they just look at each other and they say, they still had to make it a law? I love that. I absolutely love that. That's freaking fantastic. So we get a whole list of places where he's going, and one of the places he goes to is to where the Zernark's War of Secession is going on. The Snarks, right? He goes and visits one of the Snarks for the Snark War. If you're not overly familiar with the Snark War and all that stuff, it's a Power Pack thing, back when that first started out. I'm not a huge fan of Power Pack, so therefore I don't know a whole lot about the Snarks, but I have read a whole bunch about them on the Wikia pages and whatnot, and I do know that they are very well researched, because I know the limits that I have to deal with with the whenever I'm going to put something down. I know there's a whole process, and the whole entire thing can just be deleted if it doesn't meet the criteria of following up and whatnot. So I'm pretty confident with, my knowledge on the Snarks. And here's a nice little secession situation where it's like Game of Thrones, but with Snarks. I'm digging on this. Manifold goes to meet one of the Snarks, and look at how desperate the X-Men are. And it's great that he points this out. Mind you, here's these two Burner and Lifter. So we haven't seen too much from them, and also we see something about them. It's like, yeah, we're willing to sacrifice their powers to you. Very interesting. Obviously, it'd be one of those things where it's like, we'll give you the powers, but then they're going to go through the crucible and they'll be right back, and they'll have their powers back. And maybe you'll be able to keep their powers, maybe not. I don't know. We didn't say how long you keep it for, right? I don't know. It could be one of those kind of situations. That would be a funny thing that the X-Men would do. But that being said, they're willing to sacrifice their powers to this guy, this Snark, in order for him to help them defeat Null. This is especially cool to me because, when you think about the X-Men, you think about all the crap that's going on in the X universe, the Krakoan world and whatnot. It's like, I don't like the idea that Cyclops and Storm were just snatched and they're just, let's just draw them in because whatever, But then as a response, in the X books, it's like, oh, we've got, some of the X books, oh, we've got to go and we've got to rescue Storm and Scott because they're one of ours. That's the only mission. There is no other mission. Only rescue those. Okay. So again, we're focused on the idea that we're not heroes here, right? Yeah. To, war captain / silent council member and whatnot. Yeah, I get it. You know what I'm saying? It makes for a fun moment with Emma. Right? Where we got to go rescue Scott. I mean, Storm too, but we got to rescue Scott. Really good stuff. I dig on that stuff. But at the same time, very much isolated. We're not here for you. We're here for us. Okay. So the X-Men are no longer heroes. That really bites, but it is what it is. In this particular issue, at least they're not dumb here for us people. It's like, yeah, we live on the Earth too. Null's not going to stop at the borders of Krakoa. He's not going to respect our sovereignty. So we at least have to try and, help the humans this much. So I mean, yay. Yay for progress. I like the idea of it, though. It's done really well. On top of that, the fallout for what happens with the Snark that he's talking to, that Manifold is talking to, is freaking fantastic. It's like, we're willing to offer you this. And he's like, ooh, you know how much we like your powers. Yeah, this would let me get into the fray. This would make me a super, helpful person and whatnot. But then he finds out what the deal is. We'll give you these powers, pyrokinesis and gravitykinesis. That's a dumb term for it, but sure. We'll give you these two powers. All you have to do is help us get through that the gooey substance that's preventing us from contacting space with the Earth. You need to help us defeat Null. The story that happens afterwards on this page, mind you, a page that has the xenomorphs on it. Also, I can't wait till next month. Oh, horror, baby, horror. But the stuff that happens on this page is worth the price of this comic book alone. Wow, that was good. Wow, I mean, like, what could make Manifold's eyes do this? Oh, man. Oh, this was fantastic. But then something else happens. Somebody talks to this Snark after Manifold leaves. Now, Null's voice, because I thought that this was possibly Null, because it's, white letters on black background. But Null speaks with white letters on a red background. So this was not Null. Plus, this was like an assassin's blade, a kukri, I believe they're called. Totally badass sword. Got to get my hands on one of these days, because that's a freaking badass sword. Very poignant, very directional, but I still love it. Good for chopping thresh too, I'd imagine. So, Manifold leaves. And this assassin, this is particularly interesting because in the same breath, We also get the idea that that this assassin got there because he was following Manifold. Think about it. Every place that Manifold has been, to kind of be the everywhere man, and I love that term. It's not just the everyman, it's the everywhere man. I love that. Every place that he's been to, afterwards, there's a little bit of destruction there. Some things have been killed, some things have been altered, right? So somebody's following Manifold. That is badass. Is this a spy? It's a possibility because S.W.O.R.D has a mole. How do we know? Well, we know, and unfortunately, Manifold doesn't know. And mind you, this breaks the rules of conventional writing. What have I always said? The writer has to make sure that we maintain that he or she maintains the balance of here's the story and here's the protagonist of the story. If the protagonist knows more than what's been revealed in the story, then the writer feels like this guy just knows everything and this is stupid. I don't want to read the book. I feel like I'm dumb and I'm not dumb. If the story seems to know more than the main character does, the protagonist does, well, then suddenly the main character feels stupid and nobody wants to read a protagonist that's stupid. So it's a fine balance you got to keep. In this particular case, Manifold leaves the presence of Henry Peter Gyrick before he finds out that there's a mole in S.W.O.R.D. I'm impressed by how well that was done. Because of all the information he'd already gotten, that we already gotten. We've got some new redacted files. We got to get into some of this. Let's get over here to that page. It's somewhere, it's right here. So a bunch of, I purposely left this area open so that I could do this. Here's some redacted stuff here with S.W.O.R.D. And we find out that there are 7 spots, 6, the inverse of the, there's ones in the light and the ones in the darkness. I love that, but there's still the yin yang symbol. Like you think about the yin yang, or in Japanese, in yo. You have the yin, which is the big white spot, and the yang, which is the big black spot, right? The swoosh, right? But inside of each is the inverse. So there's still a little bit of the other in each other, right? It's not just a big white swoosh, there's a little black in the eye. It's not just a big black swoosh, there's a little bit of white in the eye. And that shows the perfect balance, the harmony between the two, the flow of chi, right? The flow of the universe. And here, it's also an yin-yo, right? We've got the black, we've got the white, we've got the white, we've got the black, or whatever the hell color that is, right? The yellowish, pea stain. Anyway, I love this. I absolutely love this. So we got some stuff on Orcas. We got the reminder that, hey, the stuff, that sentinel head that's rotating around the sun and whatnot? Yeah, because that was a secret mission. Manifold doesn't necessarily know about that. Or does he? It doesn't seem like he does. Hey, need to know basis, baby. Need to know basis. So I'm digging on the idea that we finally got a couple things. We're at least talking about it. So there's a head director guy, right? We've got the central executive. And then we've got research and development, which is number 1. We don't know who that is either. And we don't know who operations offense is. That's number 3. We don't know who that is. And we don't know anything. We don't even know the titles of these 3 down here. Unless somehow there's a thing where you hold it up to the light and you can see a little, and maybe, no, there's nothing there. So anyway, but number 2, infrastructure influence. Influence. And that's Henry Peter Gyrick. So he's definitely a part of the Orcas protocol. Oh my God, you're freaking kidding me. You're kidding me. So remember, Ewing is also doing the Immortal Hulk comic book, which is, wow. He's also doing the Guardians of the Galaxy, and the Snarks are over there also. So this man's like, at some point, Hickman's just going to say F it and leave. And I understand. And I don't blame the man's at all. But I will say that we've still got Al Ewing. Man. Guys, you have definitely got to get this book. You definitely have to read this book. the personal notes that are in here, besides the way, because we're learning different ways that he can use his powers. That whole peek hole, the hidey hole that he does, the idea of making himself invisible if he wants to and stuff like that. All of that stuff that we see right here in this page, Abigail Brand talking about him. Holy crap, this book was great, dude. This is great. It reminds me of old school Aquaman. Actually, no, old school Aquaman was just ridiculously powerful, like world's greatest telepath. Gave John Johns a run for his money. You know what I'm saying? Gave Martian Manhunter a run for his money with his level of telepathy. But no, in this particular case, like Aquaman, where it's like, oh no, I don't command the fish. I just, I ask them to do things and they do it. You know what I'm saying? They're willing to do it for me. You know, I always liked that idea of not working against or controlling nature, but rather working in sympathy and harmony with them. And that works perfectly with Manifold, the idea that he just asks space to fold and to do things, and it does it happily. I love that. Because if that's the case, there can also be a situation where he's out of favor with the universe. And then we've got to see him rely on some of his other skills. There's always this opportunity for something amazing. This is a book where I'm really sad that this is the first book that I read, because I get the feeling that none of the other books I read this week are going to equal up to it. And it's a shame. But, you know, got a bunch of you guys have been noticing new people coming to the channel and just saying, oh, this guy seems like a Debbie Downer. Welcome to the channel, bud. You know what I'm saying? That's not who I am. I want to get excited about the comic books. I love the comic books. I'm not going to like something just because, well, definitely not because somebody says you're supposed to like the comic book. How about this? Shut up. All right? We've all got our different opinions. There's a way, and Ewing knows the way. He knows the way. There's a way to keep the comic books interesting for the older folks, the people who've always been here, the people who've been keeping the freaking company, the different comic book companies afloat this entire time. There's a way to keep us while also entertaining new people, you know, saying new readers and whatnot. There's a way to do that. Ewing knows how to do it. If you don't know how to do it, ask him. And that's something that Marvel should do and DC should do. How do we keep the old readers and try and entice new readers to show up? All right, well, ask Ewing, he'll tell you. I feel that, you know, like too many of these big companies, they don't follow the lesson that should have been learned from the new Ghostbusters movie that came out. The one with all the women, you know, it's like you can change the characters. You can change whatever you want. And if somebody doesn't like it, they don't like it, whatever. The only thing that fans complain about, there's of course going to be jerks. There's always going to be a jerk here and there, a misogynist, whatever. But the vast majority of the fans, they were saying, listen, I don't care who you recast on here, but here's the thing. Don't just make it so that the old movies like Ghostbusters 1 and 2 don't exist or never existed. All right? Don't do that. This is a franchise for a reason. We're not interested in a reboot. If you make a reboot, we're not going to be interested. We're not going to watch it. All right? Calling us names is going to make sure that we don't watch it. But don't make it a reboot. Make it a continuation. Make it a passing of the torch so that those two stories still happened. Otherwise, you're only looking for the new fans. And if that's the way you want, you're going to see what happens. Guess what happened? They learned their damn lesson. All right? They learned their damn lesson that Paul Feige guy, Feig, whatever. I don't think he's going to be making any more freaking Ghostbusters movies anytime soon. Hopefully he doesn't make any more franchises soon, because he's somebody who simply didn't get it. Melissa McCarthy simply didn't get it. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people there in that movie and attached to that movie who simply did not get it. The Sonic people got it, and they were rewarded for it. You know what I'm saying? It's a trade-off. It's like, be fair to all of us. You know what I'm saying? I understand you want to get new people in. You should do everything you can to get new people in, but don't lose us. Don't lose the people who've always been there. Don't lose your built-in audience, right? Like, cater to your base, at least in some way. Show that you're paying attention to us. And one of the best ways you could do that, simply respect continuity. You can make changes, but respect some continuity. If you can't do that, that's your ass. That's your ass. More and more people are starting to realize that. Like, this is just the universal thing of way of things, dude. Nobody wants to see a Star Trek where there was never such a thing as a Captain Kirk. Not just as a little plot point for this episode or this arc. No, a series where it's like, no, it's brand new. It's everything, and there was no Captain Kirk ever. Nobody's interested. Literally, nobody's interested in that. You're not going to find a huge audience for that. So why even call it Star Trek? Call it something else, right? Anyway, guys, that's pretty much it for me. I loved this. The art simply blew me out of the water. Just having that art team blows me out of the water. Holy crap! I'm down if we have more of that. You know what I'm saying? Just have more artists just being able to show off what they're doing. I kind of wish that I could have known exactly who was doing what, because that would have made it a little bit easier. But this was fantastic. Damn, this was fantastic. Anyway, but you want a Manifold book. You want a book that's still going to talk about the history. You want a book that's going to tie in a bunch of stuff. You want a book that's actually going to show the story moving forward. Let's go. Let's go. Let's do it. And this was the one. Crap. Now I got to read other comic books. I hope they live up to this. Doubtful. Like the video, watch an ad. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.